Doug.
Hey, how are you?
You be available for a meeting next month, first Thursday?
Think so?
Okay. We need to be educated about all the new zones and like zero lot lines and all that crap going on.
Okay.
That threw most of mine out the window. Sure streamlined it, didn't it?
I changed it.
Yeah, just prove everything versus putting it out. Lays out there, let the market decide. That'd be wonderful. We need you at 6:30.
Okay. Yeah, just shoot me an email or give me, we'll talk.
Okay. I'll probably back in and talk to you.
Okay.
Your co-host here before too long, we still have issues with neighbors.
Okay.
We get an update from those. Everybody the rest.
smiling, doing all the right things.
I can tell.
that actually Good evening. I would like to call to order the Keizer City Council in regular session. It is Monday, February 5th, 2024, and ask our city recorder to please call roll.
Youth Councilor Woodard.
Here.
Councilor Reed.
Here.
Councilor Hessman.
Here.
Councilor Kohler.
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Here.
Council President Starr.
Here.
Councilor Duran.
Here.
Councilor Cross.
Here.
Thank you very much. If you are able, I invite you to rise and all join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Today we have two special orders of business, and we are going to begin with the proclamation for Black History Month. And I believe Thais Rodick is here on behalf of the Community Diversity Engagement Committee, so I'd like to invite you up. And do you have something to present before I read the proclamation? All right, thank you very much. Is the microphone on?
Yes, Mayor, I do. Thank you for having me. My name is Thais Rodick. I'm with the Diversity, Community, and Engagement Committee. And I'm here to talk about Black History Month. In our city, less than 0.5% of our residents currently identify as Black or African American. If you think that number is small, you are correct. In Oregon, according to the 2023 American Community Survey, Black or African Americans comprise 2% of the population. As we celebrate Black History Month, I wanted to share with you some of the reasons why Oregon's Black population is so small compared to other states in the country. Oregon was the only territory admitted to the Union with an exclusionary law. On September 21st, 1849, the Oregon Territorial Legislature enacts an exclusion law that prohibits Negro or mulatto to enter into or reside within the limits of the territory. However, Negroes or mulattoes and their children already living in the territory were not subject to this law. On November 9th, 1857, Oregon voters approved the Oregon Constitution, which bans both slavery and new Black residents in Oregon. It makes it illegal for Blacks to own real estate, make contracts, vote, or use the legal system. On November 2nd, 1900, Oregon voters reject a proposal to repeal the exclusion law in the Constitution. In 1914, Portland's chapter of the NAACP is founded and is the oldest continuously chartered chapter west of the Mississippi. In 1921, the Ku Klux Klan organizes chapters in Oregon. In 1922, Beatrice Kennedy becomes the first African-American woman to graduate from Lewis and Clark Law School. In 1926, finally, the exclusionary clause is removed from the Oregon Constitution. 1927, state constitution is amended to remove voting restrictions against African or Chinese Americans. 1951, the law repealed prohibiting interracial marriage. And in 2002, there's a measure requiring the removal of racist language from the state constitution passes. I'm here to talk about one of the first settlers that we have history of, and an interesting fact about our legal system. Her name is Letitia Carson, and she lived in Oregon from 1815 to 1888. She came to Oregon as a slave or former slave with David Carson. She gave birth to a daughter, Martha, while traveling to Oregon. Soon after arriving in Oregon, the family settled into a cabin they built on a 640-acre land. A son, Adam, was born in 1849. The next year, officials reduced Carson's claim to 320 acres, so by half, most likely because David and Letitia were not married. The Donation Land Act provided 640 acres for married couples only. David Carson died in Benton County in 1852, and in February 1854, Letitia filed suit against the executor of the state. According to her filing, David had promised that if she would live and work for him during the remainder of his life, he would make her his sole heir, or that he would give me his entire property upon his death. However, this was not put in writing, so again, get an estate attorney if you can. Letitia went to court seeking $7,450 for 7 years of work, plus the value of livestock and other property to which she had claimed she was entitled. According to Oregon's exclusionary law, Black immigrants were not allowed to own land, file suit, or even reside within the territory's boundary for more than 6 months. Yet Letitia sued David's state twice in a Benton County court in an effort to recover an equitable portion of their property for herself and her children. On May 12, 1855, a jury of Letitia Carson's former Benton County peers, all white males, determined that Letitia was due $300 for her service to David Carson and another $229.50 to cover costs and legal fees. 60 months later, on October 25th, 1856, a federal judge and local jury awarded her an additional $1,399. Sometime after the settlement, Letitia and her children moved to Douglas County, and for many years, she reportedly made her home with the Hardy Iliff family in the Upper Cow Creek Valley, where she worked for the family and also served as a community midwife. She finally ended up receiving acres when U.S. President Abraham Lincoln signed the Homestead Act into law. She lived in Oregon until 1888 and was buried a few miles from her homestead property at the Stevens Cemetery in Myrtle Creek. A Light in the Wilderness, a historical novel written by Jane Kirkpatrick in 2014 and based on the facts of Letitia Carson's life, was published. I'm sharing with you these dates because they help us understand why we have the demographic composition we have currently in our state, and hopefully shed light in the work we have to do ahead of us to bring equity and inclusion to all of our residents.
Absolutely outstanding. Thank you so much for sharing that, a story that I did not know on Letitia specifically, but to encourage us to keep moving forward. Thank you. What I'd like to do now is read the proclamation and do a presentation to you. We have 2 copies. I will be delivering our second copy to the head of the Salem NAACP. I will see him on Wednesday at an event we will both be at.
Awesome.
The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas Black History Month celebrates rich cultural heritage, triumphs, and adversities that are an integral part of our country's history. And whereas 50 years after the first celebrations, then President Gerald R. Ford officially recognized Black History Month at the country's 1976 bicentennial and called on Americans to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history, end quote. And whereas Dr. Carter G. Woodson, a founder of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, first had the idea of this month-long celebration in 1926, out of concern that Black children were not being taught about their ancestors' achievements in American schools. And whereas the 2024 theme whereas the 2024 theme is African Americans and the arts. And whereas African American art is infused with African, Caribbean, and the Black American lived experiences in the fields of visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, folklore, language, film, music, architecture, culinary, and other forms of cultural expression, the African American influence has been paramount. And whereas African American artists have used art to preserve history and community memory, as well as for empowerment, artistic and cultural movements such as the New Negro, Black arts, Black Renaissance, hip hop, and Afrofuturism have been led by people of African descent and set the standard for popular trends around the world. And whereas in celebrating the entire history of African Americans and the arts, we join people across our nation in spotlighting the richness of the past and present with an eye toward the rest of the 21st century will bring. Therefore, I, Kathy Clark, Mayor of the City of Keizer, together with the Keizer City Council assembled in regular session, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2024 as Black History Month, and urge all the people of Keizer to heed the call to study the history of Black Americans' responses and support efforts to establish safe spaces, institutions, communities, and homes where Black life can be sustained, fortified, and respected. Black History Month, ladies and gentlemen.
Just
to look at the camera because then it looks funny. All right. Thank you very much. Our second special order of business tonight is for the Marion Polk Food Share presentation. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to Council President Starr, who worked with a team of community members to bring the Keizer Miracle of Christmas Lights, I guess Miracle of Lights is the name now, once again to our community, which has been a tremendous event for many years, but also very important for our Marion Polk Food Share and our neighbors. Council President Starr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we'll just turn it over to Rick Galpo, my friend and committed leader and CEO of the Marion Polk Food Share, to share with us the results of this year's community event.
Well, thank you so much, Rick Galpo, president of the Marion Polk Food Share, and the results are amazing. But before I get started, two things. One, I think it's awesome that I'm going to be up here honoring also Black History Month, because we got to remember that hunger is disproportionately impacted on BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous, people of color. And so we think of hunger as neutral, or anyone can be hungry, and that is true, but BIPOC members have a higher disproportionate rate of hunger. So first of all, thank you. Thank you to Keizer. Thank you to everyone who participated. The Miracle of Lights display was a huge success. Some of the numbers, over 20,000 pounds of food. And you got to remember, as you all know, this is just people driving by, literally bringing cans of food as they go see the Christmas lights and dropping them off at some collection sites. And $43,000 raised. We have a formula that converts that into meals, because people don't eat pounds of food, they eat meals. And that's about 148,000 meals between the food and the money that gets generated and dispersed back into our community. Pre-COVID numbers for the Miracle of Lights was around 27,000. Post-COVID, 43,000. That's just amazing. And then the food follows the same trend. And over the last 8 years, this is a little embarrassing. It's been going longer than 8 years, but we have kept records for 8 years. So for over the last 8 years, that's over 1 million meals generated by the Miracle of Lights display. That's amazing. This is super important right now because the pressure has never been greater. All the safety net programs that got generated during COVID have largely gone away. I'm talking about SNAP increases, child tax credits, which may be just coming back. But all the safety net programs are going away. But the pressure on the pocketbook is super high right now. I just heard this little meme that was the most expensive vehicle I drove this month was a grocery cart. Pressure books on the grocery cart are at the store is high. And we have seen record number of visits to local pantries. So when I say thank you, it is because you're amazing. It is because it is so needed. You are literally feeding hungry families in Keizer and the community. Some special people to thank are everyone from the Gupson neighborhood who participated, but also were impacted by this effort. So I don't take that lightly. To City Council and staff for your support. Some key people, Jill Gus, Patty Tischer, I think. Thank you. John Moore, Chelsea Strait, Mayor Kathleen Clark, Shani Starr, Adam Brown, Tim Moore. We thank you all, and I know but once you start naming names, I missed people, but thank you all for making an amazing event and feeding so many people. And we have a check.
We do have a presentation tonight.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. I just want to.
Council President Starr.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I just want to give a recognition to Ali Coriano, who brought the idea forward many months ago about a different drop-off location. And then John Moore, whose property the collection tent and site was on. And he made it look literally like Santa's workshop with all of the lights and the decorations that he put up and the preparation that he did on his property. And as you mentioned, Rick, Chelsea Strait really stepped up and led the volunteer effort at the collection tent and beyond for just making sure between all of the neighbors in Gubser to pull this together and coordinate all of the teams doing the collection and manning the collection tent. So really wanted to give a recognition to those three. It is a community effort, so it's all of Keizer that comes together in all different forms. So just thank you to everyone in the community, and thank you, Rick, to your team. You had staff with us at every meeting and every step of the way, and the food share, we got really good at counting coins and dollar bills. We even named all of the coin counting machine and the cash counting machine, so they have nicknames to follow them through in the years to come. But you have an amazing team, and so thank you for all the hours that your team committed to helping put it together in the social media and just the communication out to the community and to the neighborhood. So thank you to you and your team for all you do every day for our community. We really appreciate it. It truly is a passion, and we can see that. You live it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shall we make the presentation?
All right.
All right, let's do this. So do this where it's easier for everybody to read. Oh, no,
Okay, look this way,
One more.
look this way. Does it walk this way? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. What a wonderful thing to celebrate in our community, the generosity of so many people making it possible for our families to have food security. I am so thankful to be a part of a community that gets this done. Thank you, Rick. Thank you to everybody who made this happen. We will now go to committee reports, and tonight I have Matt Lawyer here for 3 reports. He'll start off with Parks, Planning, and then Claggett Creek Watershed Council. A man of many talents.
I'm probably going to. Maybe the first time I've done that. All right, good evening, Madam Mayor, Council staff. For the record, Matt Lawyer. For this one, I'm representing the Keizer Parks and Recreation Group. On this committee for number of years. I think I started back in like 2016 or something. And I'm excited, I'm taking over as chair this year. So big shoes to fill following David Loudon, who was chair for, I don't know, 140 something years. And then, Tanya Hamilton. So really good opportunity, looking forward to it. We talked a little bit about the strategic plan. very generally at first, and one of the things that I asked the Parks Board to do is to go back and actually look at the various elements of the strategic plan and the direct nexus that the Parks Department, or excuse me, the Parks Board may have within the specific areas of the parks, the strategic plan, and then come back and be ready to have a conversation about that this month, next week. And then individually asked all of the Parks Board members to make sure they go on the Keizer.org website and actually do the survey on the strategic plan themselves. So it was a very interesting discussion. You know, I think we weren't necessarily prepared to have the kind of conversation that it deserved to be had that night. But Councilor Kohler sort of ushered us into kind of how we could talk about it, which actually set us up for great success the following night. And I was a little more prepared to talk about how we could kind of navigate through that. But it was great to have the city manager there to kind of talk through kind of the expectations. And what I'll say is I don't think many people on the boards have ever experienced a strategic plan, and so this is very new. Being a government wonk, I've been through a lot of them, and so for me, it's just like, oh, this is Thursday. But it was a fun experience. Thank you, Adam, for being there and talking us through a little bit of that. Talk through very wet in our parks, believe it or not, and I don't know why. It hasn't been raining or wet or icy or whatever. Robert continues to experience graffiti in our parks. It's changing. You know, there's been, you know, trends here and there. We had one individual get caught, which was great, and then new folks kind of moved in, and the behaviors are continuing to perpetuate, which is a little bit frustrating. Yeah, right now it's winter, so we're just kind of keeping our feet dry and getting ready to go into the spring and start doing some more projects in the spring, which will be great. I'm going to segue into Clyde Creek Watershed Council a little bit because...
Let's pause.
Yes,
Just
ma'am.
make sure there's no questions on parks in particular. Checking, go.
Okay, Clyde Creek Watershed Council. Why I'm going there is that on March 16th, put on your calendars, we are continuing the trend of the annual Civic Center cleanup. And this is a project that has been done by Rotary and the Clyde Creek Watershed Council for, I believe this will be our 13th or 14th year. The last 2 years, I will tell you last year, we actually had so much stuff that the tractor was taking the debris from a corner, and Tim, you were there for the bulk of it. We were shoveling it on top of the bin because there was literally no more room. So we were 30 plus yards of debris. So it's a tremendous amount of savings to the city for the amount of work that's done all around both this park, I can never say it, the skate park, all around Workman, Bailey, everything. So it's a very, very big project. There will be details coming out on that probably from either Rotary or the Clyde Creek Watershed Council. I'm sure the city will be putting stuff out there as well. But it's one of those projects that many hands make light work. It is open for everyone, all skill sets, all ages. We've had kids as young as 2. If you can walk and pick up trash, by all means, come. We've had people with some mobility challenges that have showed up and helped people sign in. And so we just encourage everybody to come out and spend a few hours doing some really, really great work. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work, but it is a lot of fun. We're looking forward to that event coming up March 16th. We usually kick off right around 8 o'clock. I'll confirm the time on that, but the pre-show to that actually happens that Friday. So there will be a group of volunteers that come out and they actually do all the trimming, they do all the prep work. So really folks are just coming and raking stuff up and getting it out of there. So good to go there. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
Okay, March 16th for everybody in the community. Come on out. It's a fun time and there's cookies.
There usually are cookies.
There's cookies.
So,
There you go.
Yeah. We were so busy last year, I actually had to ask Tim on the fly, can I go buy more garbage cans? Because we were very much in need of them because we had people just standing around. So thanks for approving that, by the way. All right, Planning Commission. So I'm going to make this quick. Actually, Chief told me I had 20 minutes per topic, so I feel like I'm doing quite well. So the Planning Commission, we went through, again, the strategic plan discussion. And so because I had kind of a preview of that a little bit, I kind of headed off at the past. Councilor Duran did a good job of sort of introducing it. But again, I just tasked the planning commissioners with going back, looking at the various goals in the areas within the strategic plan and bringing back those items that we felt in particular had a direct nexus with planning. For me, public participation is absolute number one across the board. Councilor Essman, you've asked me multiple times, how do we do that? I don't know if we can figure it out. We're gonna make lots and lots of money as consultants, right? The fact of the matter is, it's just one of those things that's very hard. So we're going to be coming back with that actually later in February. We postponed our February meeting because we're actually going to be revisiting the work that the Planning Commission can do around variances and some other work. And so Shane and Mr. Johnson will be bringing that back. We're going to be revisiting the potential for the workload and the type of work the Planning Commission will be doing. But I think that the biggest thing that sort of caught my eye is if we look at the work plan, and unfortunately I can't bring it up right now, but we looked at the work plan for 2024, and the great part about it is a lot of it kind of seemed like most of the big stuff was really done. The amount of work that Shane's been able to accomplish and the Planning Commission's been able to accomplish over the last few years, frankly, is just insane. We've had some massive tasks, and we still have some with CFEC and some of the other stuff coming down the pipeline. But I just want to really congratulate Shane on doing a tremendous job, and Dina, and of course, City Attorney Johnson for mostly putting up with me. He hardly rolls his eyes at me in meetings anymore, which is just wonderful. He must be retiring. It's great, and we do have some really good work, but the stuff that we're getting to do now is actually stuff that I think Shane's been looking at for a long time as things that he's really wanted to do, but not had to do, right? So a lot of the things we've been doing have been responsive or reactive to external influences, and so now I think Shane is being able to sort of bring the things forward that really he's wanted to do, and we have the opportunity to do so. So that speaks volumes to the work that Shane and Dina and City Attorney Johnson have done. So I just really want to take a moment to recognize their hard work and congratulate them, because it's rare that a planning department can do that. Most of the time you're living in the space of responsiveness. So they did a good job. So thank you guys. That's all I got.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments on Planning Commission report? And I would absolutely echo what you said. We do see some bills that are coming up in legislature. I'll be bringing that up later under other business that many of us, of course, are tracking because they will directly impact cities like Keizer, and we want to be, like always, at the table rather than on the menu.
Right.
So really appreciate that, and also the awareness about how we can help influence legislation that would help cities rather than get in our way. So thank you so much for your work. Appreciate it. All right. Is there anybody else here for a committee report tonight? I don't have any other forms, but if you're here for a committee report, raise your hand. Okay. Didn't miss anybody. We do have other committees. All right. That takes us then to public comment. This time is provided for citizens to address the council on any matters other than those on the agenda scheduled for public hearing. We have two public hearings scheduled for this evening. The first is the OLCC application limited on-premises sales liquor license for Quetzal's Nest. And so if you're here for that, or for the other one, which is the appeal of Planning Commission order in the matter of the application of Michael and Susie Lay for a partition and major variance on property located on 527 Dearborn Avenue North. If you're here for one of those, stand by. And before we go to spoken comment, I do have one written comment for the record, and that is a letter, a Greater Northeast Keizer Neighborhood Association public process for fees for service. So that letter will be entered into the record under written comment. And with that, then under public comment, I do have Ken Gearloff signed up. So you're right up front, sir. Always good to see you.
Go for it tonight, so you don't have to wait as long.
That was good planning.
I try. Ken Gerloff, speaking for myself as a Keizer resident tonight, not for the neighborhood association, but I will make a few comments about what we're doing. We're trying to kick off a helmet compliance program again. We used to have one back in the 90s where we worked with John Hyder from the Circle K's, and we got Slurpee coupons to give to kids when they were found wearing helmets, and we had very good compliance with that. So we're trying to bring back something of that nature. So if you know of a resource, someone that can give small drinks or something, sweets probably is the best thing to get kids' attention. And people to support that so they're not taking the hit all by themselves. So those are the two things we're looking for. We hope to put it together by spring, get it, roll it out so we get kids, when they start riding the bikes in the bed or whatever, that they have their helmets on and not be cracking so many skulls. So that said, that's kind of what we're looking for, and I'm using the cameras and this the internet and everything we do to try and kick that off and get people kind of brainstorming about it. So, but then on to the fees. We had a little discussion with the neighborhood association about that. We didn't take a vote because we hadn't got public comments yet. I posted something on our Facebook page today to try and enact comments. We'll probably come back in a month and have some comments from the neighborhood that we can have solid testimony about the fees. The discussion was pretty much, we feel it's kind of a sneaky tax, and we're afraid that it may set a precedence for other departments and may be raised every year, kind of like sales tax, 4% honest, and, then 6, 8, it goes on and on. We think it should be, if it's a good use of tax money, it should go out to the public. You should be able to sell it. I think you've done wonderful things. I don't think you've abused the money. I think it went to the right places, did the right things. We don't have any problem with that. It's just the method that's being collected. It's a sneaky tax to us. But like I said, that's my personal comment, and that's not the neighborhood association. We'll come back with the neighborhood association in a month. So anyway, that's my testimony.
So if I could ask a point of clarification, you talked about the method of collection, which is on the services bill. So when you come back next month, can you include comments regarding that, that portion as well?
Certainly.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment this evening? I don't have anybody else signed up. All right, we will though go then to public hearings. Let me get the first sheet up here. I'd like to open a public hearing on the OLCC application, limited on-premises sales liquor license, Kutzal's Nest on 4415 River Road North. And this goes to Ms. Bissett.
Thank you, Mayor. On December 21st, the city received an application for a new outlet limited on-premises liquor license for Quetzal's Nest, located at 4415 River Road North. As required by our ordinance, a public hearing was scheduled for tonight, and notice was published. We mailed the notice to all property owners within 200 feet, the establishment, and also the West Keizer Neighborhood Association. The Keizer Police Department conducted their background checks, and they have no reason to recommend denial of the application. The Planning Department also finds that the location of the establishment is properly zoned, and there's no additional comment on the application. So staff's recommendation is that the hearing be opened, you allow for testimony, and then the hearing be closed, and then that the council recommends approval of the license.
All right. Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the staff report of the recommendation? Seeing none. I do not have anybody signed up for the public hearing this evening. Is there anyone present who would like to testify on this matter at this time? If you would like to, please come forward. I'm sorry, would you like to testify on this? You'd have to come to the microphone. All right, come on up. Well, welcome. And if you would just give your name and your city of residence for the record.
So my name's Carlos Chan Vasquez. I will be one of the co-owners for the business. Okay. I just wanted to kind of come over here and introduce myself. Alongside with me, I have my brother-in-law that's present at the moment, and the other co-owner will be my sister. So kind of just like I said, just came over to introduce myself, let you guys know that it's something that we've been planning for quite some time now. So we want to bring something a little bit different over to City of Keizer. So hoping you guys get kind of when everything's all started up and opening, just kind of come visit and come hang out and enjoy it.
Well, thank you and welcome. Thank you for choosing Keizer for bringing your business. Can you tell us about the type of menu items you're going to have?
Menu items. So it's actually the location we're at right now will be at Copper Creek Mercantile. My brother-in-law that's with me right now, he owns a food truck. There's multiple pods at that location, so we'll be specifically focusing on serving craft beer, anything off tap, and then the food will be provided by the other food carts there. So our main focus would be just to serve alcoholic beverages.
As part of that growing food
As part of
pod?
that growing food pod.
Well, that's fantastic. All right. Any questions from city councilors of our business owner? All right. Well, we do have no more questions. Thank you so much.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you for
Thanks,
coming
everyone.
tonight. Anyone else who would like to speak on this matter? All right. Anything else from council before I close the public hearing? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Council President Starr.
I move the Keizer City Council recommend approval of the application for a new outlet limited on-premises liquor license for Quetzal's Nest under the guidelines established by ORS 471.175 and the ordinances of the City of Keizer.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council recommend approval of the application for a new outlet limited on-premises liquor license for Quetzal's Nest under the guidelines established by ORS 471.175 and the ordinances of the City of Keizer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much, and welcome to the Keizer business family. Our next public hearing is, I would like to open a public hearing on the appeal of Planning Commission order in the matter of the application of Michael and Susan Lee for a partition and major variance on a property located at 527 Dearborn Avenue North, Keizer, Oregon, case number 2023-12. And this goes to Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So first of all, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. It is an appeal from the Planning Commission order, which actually approved that partition and major variance in the case that you noted. The review criteria for a partition is in our development code 3.107.07, as well as the review criteria for the major variance is 3.105.05. These are also in the packet and in throughout our planning director put together how these are all addressed in the packet. But I can read, unless I hear that folks don't need me to actually read these particular review criteria because they're pretty onerous. So I'm looking for an objection to me letting the packet stand and moving on without having to read all the criteria.
Any objection to foregoing reading of the criteria? Hearing none?
Okay,
Mr.
and you'll hear about them right from the planning director afterward anyway. So basically, testimony, arguments, and evidence in this hearing must be directed toward the criteria that are in the development code and or other criteria in the plan or land use regulations which you believe apply to this decision. And so it really is about the criteria and directing your arguments and evidence towards those things. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the city council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issues precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals, otherwise known as LUBA, based on that issue, and that's by state statute. And then for the applicant, the failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. That's also by Oregon state statute. So he that person would have to come up specifically and challenge the approval conditions if they wanted to not have their issue precluded in circuit court. And finally, for the council, I need to know, are there any declarations of either conflict of interest, bias, or ex parte contacts?
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. For the record, I would like folks to know that I do not know the property owner, but I do know the renters there. This is in my neighborhood. So I know the renters in the front property socially. So I walk by that property every single day, and I've seen the notices and am aware of the work that has been undertaken.
And does this relationship or this understanding lead you to believe that you can't be fair and objective in the hearing today?
My intention is to be clear and objective. I've read the materials from that point of view, but I wanted to make sure that the applicant and the appellant were aware in case they had a concern.
Okay. And are there any questions on that particular information? Okay. Is there?
So the appellant is here. Can we come to the microphone? Do you want to have him come to the microphone?
If he has questions about that particular, do you have questions about that particular information? Okay,
All right.
yeah.
You need to be at the microphone, please, for the record, if you will come up to the testimony table.
Madam Mayor, I'm
Yes.
going to call the applicant. He's
Yes.
going to, so I'll phone him in right now.
Okay, so please have a seat, sir, and we're going to bring the applicant on. And then that way the applicant and the appellant can also hear the conversation. So sorry to make you stand by, sir.
Thank you.
And while we're waiting on that, I could also say there are a series of packets. One is the actual planning packet, portion of the packet, which is the record from below and the evidence in the case.
This is Melissa You're now on speakerphone here in the council chambers.
And I want to make sure that,
We have an echo. Okay, so the applicant, is that Mr. Lee? Okay, so welcome. Glad to have you on the speakerphone. Mr. Lindsay will let you know where we are in our process here and where we have a question regarding, and I'm Kathy Clark, Mayor, and I'm speaking at the moment. And I know the renter on your property because your property is in my neighborhood. And we're about to have a discussion about that. Does that bring us up to speed?
yeah, thank you. And Mr. Lee, the other thing that I would want you to hear substantively is we are starting this quasi-judicial hearing, and there's certain rights, but there's also certain ways in which you can be precluded from pursuing those rights under Oregon law. And so what you would want to know, I had read this earlier to the whole galley here, but you weren't here, so I'm gonna, for your benefit, say that if you fail as an applicant to raise any constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government, Keizer, or its designee to respond to those issues, you could be precluded from taking up an action for damages in circuit court. And I just wanted you to hear that. I believe because you've been through a earlier lower decision, you've actually heard that right before. But I just wanted to be extra safe and on the record with that. And then the other mention that I was trying to help us be efficient, if it was going to take a second, is just to notice that there are pieces of evidence that are on the dais, and I would assume, and I would ask for objection, that even though this is a de novo hearing, that you guys are entering all of that evidence into the record officially as well, so that it will go with the record if this case were to go anywhere else.
So noted for the record.
Okay. So what question, sir, do you have of the potential bias or ex parte contact?
No, that wasn't the topic that I was curious about. It was when you read the list of items that we had to, I guess, announce in order to retain our right to pursue this at the LUBA level.
Oh, so you're talking about the review criteria?
Well, I just brought the same packets that you have. I didn't bring my stack of Google searches and quasi judicial strategy and explanation of what the processes are. So I do not even have the appeal letter that I filled out 2 months ago with me.
Sir,
If-
I will let you know that that is actually what I just made sure with Mayor Clark is that that is part of the packet that I keep talking about, and that is actually in the record. So
Oh, I don't doubt-
all of that is actually being considered by this body throughout this hearing, if that helps.
Okay, is there
So
any-
you didn't have to bring it, it's in the record.
Okay, but do I have to repeat it, or it's just part of the history?
Yeah,
And the
it's-
history
and any of the
evidential
comments-
package goes with it?
Any
Okay,
of the comments and correspondence you've sent in throughout this whole process are now part of the record. So
Okay.
that you don't have to say those things again.
Okay.
You could if you wanted to hammer
okay.
them home.
No.
Okay.
I expected to be here about 2 minutes and say thank you and good night, but,
Okay, so do you not have any questions for the mayor about whether or not she can?
oh, absolutely not. I'm
Okay.
sure she's able to negotiate the quasi judicial ground rules and interesting system. I like it, but at this point, I'm on the wrong end of it, so.
Well, fair enough. So then, if no other people have questions about what the mayor said about either ex parte contacts in this case, or any sort of bias from friendship, if you have it now, you would have to bring it up.
No, I'm jealous if she's in the neighborhood. Why did she stop at my house too? You're invited.
Thank you kindly.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else on, thank you very much, sir. And so we'll let you step back for while we finish this portion, and we'll proceed.
back.
Yes, if you would, please. Thank you. Any other council members that need to declare a ex parte or other contact? Okay, Mr. Lindsay?
Yeah, and so then for the participants, we just want to make sure that prior to the close of the hearing, you need to state any objections to bias, conflicts of interest, ex parte contacts, or jurisdiction of this council to hear this matter or opportunity to be heard. So this is kind of a catch-all to make sure that during the hearing is the time to have any of your complaints heard. That's what the process exists for. So speak up, don't just sit on your hands and think that there'll be another moment for you, because that's what a hearing is for. So otherwise, what I want to go over is the times, because the times are actually put out in your procedures and guidelines that the city council has. And so in particular, there's a staff summary for the hearing. And so you will hear from our planning director. And then what happens is you'll have the applicant's case in chief, and that is limited to 20 minutes total. So the applicant has a chance to be heard because it's their burden. And then the appellant has 5 minutes to speak in total. And then any person who's in favor has 5 minutes. Any person who's opposed has 5 minutes. And then there's sometimes a catch-all other. So sometimes people aren't necessarily for or against, but they really want to be heard on the matter. So there's also 5 minutes for those folks. And then because the burden is on the applicant, there is a rebuttal for that person. So after hearing all those other folks, the rebuttal period is a 10-minute period.
Okay, got it. So it goes now to our staff report, and that would be Mr. Witham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. So yes, as Mr. Lindsay said, tonight we've got an appeal of a partition and major variance decision that was granted in September. I'll give you kind of like the high-level look at what it is, and then let you answer. You can ask questions of me. That might be the easiest way. The information in the packet is thick. The staff decisions, they're always long because there's a ton of criteria that we address. But the crux of this application, property located at 527 Dearborn Avenue North. The applicant wished to divide it's a single property with a single family home and an accessory dwelling unit located on it. They desired to split the property from one piece into two pieces. The property itself is a little over 16,000 square feet currently. So it's one lot that's around 7,000 square feet. The other lot proposed at about 6,600 square feet. Of course, that's pre survey work. So we'll find out exactly what those sizes are once survey work is done and the platting process were to be completed. But the applicant proposes to essentially divide it into two pieces so that a new single-family home could be built on the rear property in conjunction with the existing accessory dwelling unit, served by a private access easement that would provide access to both the rear home and ADU as well as the front home. There are requirement conditions from the city engineer's office and public works department, some frontage improvements needed along Dearborn, sidewalks, things like that. The other thing about the application, kind of key element here, is they did come in and they requested a major variance to the required setback from the edge of the access easement to the existing home. So it's a really confusing way to look at setbacks. Normally we measure setbacks from property lines. However, in the Keizer Development Code, there is a requirement that says if you have a structure, a home, that it needs to be at least 5 feet away from the edge of an access easement. Now, what's interesting is there is already a driveway that goes along the side of this home that goes back to the ADU. But the fact that they're going to divide the property into two, it has to be an actual legal means of access. So it has to be an access easement. And the access easement standard is a 20-foot wide width. The house is located approximately 22 feet. There's a jut out on the house. And then the pinch point is basically 22 feet from the property line to the edge of the home. So in conjunction with the partition application, the applicant requested a major variance to allow that setback to be reduced from the required 5 feet down to 2 feet. And so that is part of the application as well. That's part of the decision. As I said, in September, I issued a staff decision. That decision addressed all the relevant criteria, included a whole bunch of conditions that we were placing on the application, and approved it ultimately with conditions. It was appealed, went to Planning Commission in November. Ultimately, Planning Commission upheld the decision, upheld the staff decision in its entirety. That was sent out, and so it was appealed again. And so now we're here before you all for consideration of the review criteria to determine if something needs to be different than what Planning Commission previously determined. I think that's kind of the high level issues. I know that we had quite a bit of testimony at the Planning Commission meeting that it sounds like there may be some ill will amidst property owners, some problems there, but not something that, unfortunately, not something that we can address through actual review criteria to point to and say, oh, this doesn't meet this standard for what the code requires. Mr. Weckert did submit, and it's in the packet, the appeal form where he kind of pointed out the different errors or omissions, the problems that, as he saw in the staff report that I wrote. It's in your packet. I did walk through each of those and address those the best of my ability. A couple of them had references to development code provisions, and I addressed those accordingly and pointed to, okay, this is addressed on this section of the code. Unfortunately, several of the items that were identified as grounds for appeal were not actually relevant review criteria or part of the development code, so I'm not able to address those at this time. I think with that, I would be happy to try to answer any questions you all might have about the application before we receive testimony.
All right, thank you very much. Looking for questions from council regarding any portion of the packet materials. Councilor Husband?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Witham, one quick question. Have city staff been out to this particular site for any purpose? Is that something that's pertinent here as you see fit?
I mean, as far as, yes, I have. Pretty much every time a land use application comes in, I'll do a drive by the site if it's somewhere that I don't already really know. I like to kind of visually understand the lay of the land before I'm writing any kind of a staff decision. So we have been out by the site. I mean, I've been by the site a couple different times, so.
Nothing further, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. I don't see it in the list of the 8 items, but there was some discussion in the materials regarding parking. And the parking requirements that we are working under at this point are the new parking minimums under the CFAC rules. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct, Madam Mayor. I can find it really quick, just one second.
Because I didn't mark the page.
I think it's page 27 of the packet, if I remember right.
Thank you.
But basically, I'll give you the overview. Yes, there is a requirement now through, I think it's OAR 660, 12/030, or 30. Oh, thank you. You found it. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so it is on page 27 of your packet. There is a finding addressing off-street parking and loading. As much as I would like to be able to require it, we cannot there. Basically, the OAR that was passed last year, first year that was basically said that, hey, if you're within a half mile of the transit, was considered frequent transit, which is 15-minute head times, you cannot regulate parking, you can't require minimums.
Right.
So-
And was the distance of that property from River Road, there's River Road is the 15-minute service, and that meets that criterion?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Anything further from counselors? All right. So at this time, we will go then to the applicant. And that would be to Mr. Lee. The floor is yours. Can you hear us?
Mr. Lee?
Yes, I'm here.
So at this
Can
time.
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Thank you.
At this time, we would invite you to offer your portion of the presentation regarding the application for this, this variance.
Okay, so it's my turn. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Thank you. Well, I'm sorry I couldn't make it there. I was going to the hearing a couple weeks ago, and the storm came, and Alaska canceled my flight. So, as it turned out, the hearing gets deferred. So I appreciate the time for the opportunity to speak to you. So, good evening, Madam Mayor and the members of the City Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I won't repeat what I say in the Planning Commission hearing in November. I think there's a video for that on the Keizer TV website. The bottom line up front for the council tonight is that I am following all the Keizer City's guidelines in my request to petition the property at 527 Dearborn Avenue. I understand Mr. Wecker's position and his sentiments about the redwood and the fir trees in his backyard. I have expressed, my plan in the previous hearing, what I'm planning to do. The details are in that video or in that report. From my perspective, the redwoods are magnificent trees. They are majestic trees. I have traveled through the California Redwoods National Park a few times, and I witnessed these majestic trees in the wild. However, when I see the redwoods in Mr. Wecker's yard, they are not in the same environment. They don't look as healthy as those in the wild. In fact, if you Google redwoods in urban area, you will find studies that concluded the fact that redwoods planted in urban areas do not grow as healthy as those in the wild. The redwoods in Mr. Wecker's backyard were planted less than 10 feet apart, and their canopies are not evenly grown. A couple of the fir trees in the back corner have lost their tops from previous storm. I consulted an arborist last September, and he told me that those trees will eventually die and fall. I saw in the news about the trees that fell onto the Portland home from the last storm, and I do fear for the safety of my tenants and my neighbors. In summary, I'd like to share that in Hawaii, we share the same respect for the environment as native Oregonians. The Hawaiian has the phrase malama aina. It means to take care of the land. Mr. Wecker's redwoods do not belong in natural habitat. He probably didn't plant those trees in his yard many years ago, and no one would foresee the risk that we are facing today. But I do believe that he does bear the responsibility for the safety of his neighbors. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Mr. Lindsay, is there time for questions at this point, or does it go straight to the appellant? I'm a little confused.
If you guys can ask questions of the applicant if you want, and that can not necessarily be counted against his time, but he has, I mean, he only used 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you want to ask him questions.
My question may be for you, Mr. Lee, or maybe for our attorney, Mr. Lindsay. I'm looking at the criteria under, the 8 items that are in our packet for consideration, and I'm looking for where trees, they're mentioned in item number 6. Mr. Lindsay, can you help me understand where this part of the conversation comes in relative to the variance that is being considered?
Well, okay. It is actually, in terms of the review criteria, and our planning director can say this too, but it is really irrelevant. Although I would say that trees as part of along access easements, and then also trees that you have to plant whenever you actually develop are part of this. But these particular trees that exist aren't part of either the variance or the major variance or the partition that's being sought. So that could come around at a different time with permitting, but right now the discussion doesn't actually turn on trees or not.
Okay, because I'm knowing the orientation that Mr. Wecker's property is to the west, and the travel easement that we're talking about is on the east side of the property. That's where I was a little confused about what we were talking about here in relative to the variance. Mr. Witham.
Yeah, and I do think that, so at the dais, there is some written information that Mr. Weckert will talk about, I'm sure, during his testimony. And at the last hearing, including the packet, there were 2 other written documentations, one from Mr. Lee, one from Mr. Weckert, that were submitted kind of right before the Planning Commission hearing. And there was a lot of discussion about the trees, and specifically trees on the property line between Mr. Weckert and Mr. Lee's property, and who was responsible to maintain those, and if development of the site would damage those trees. So I think that's probably where that's coming from, or that's where the relevance is. Again, Mr. Lindsay's correct in that the review criteria that we look at specific to trees is found in the Keizer Development Code section 2.309, which is our site and landscaping section, where we require that if there are significant trees located on the subject property that are proposed to be removed, that those are to be identified and that those get replanted at a 2-to-1 ratio. And so in this case, Mr. Lee has indicated that there is no intention to remove any trees on his site to allow for the development. So hopefully that helps.
That helps. Thank you very much. Do you have any, you heard Mr. Lindsay's and Mr. Witham's comments, Mr. Lee. Is there anything else you would like to add on that matter?
No, Madam Mayor. I heard what was said, so thank you.
All right. Any other questions from city council before we go to the appellant? All right, seeing none. Mr. Lindsay, should we bring up Mr. Weckert as the appellant? Mr. Weckert, you want to come up, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Lee's discussion just now, I had no intention of going into those areas. If I burn up my time responding to him, I won't have any time left at all. So I would think that I need to change the topic here. About 6 of us were sent invitations to comment on the project that Mr. Lee has going. We took the city up on that, and we've got ourselves in a pickle. We did not bargain or want this kind of a conflict. It's costly, it's time consuming, it has upset our lives for, what has it been, 6 months? We just want it to end, but we don't want it to end having lost the properties and the quality of our homes. Mr. Lee's project has basically turned one of the homes into a corner lot. That's on the east side. On my side, he has been after those trees from the time he moved in. He does not like large trees, and he's used every excuse he can find to cut them, to kill them, to whatever. If you have pictures, I don't think I have any with me. I have hundreds of pictures, but he has butchered his own landscaping, and he wants to butcher ours. I don't like that. We're trying to stop him. We're looking for the weak point. I thought I had one identified last night. There was, if you have my packets out, I presume you should have them. I'm sorry the pages aren't all numbered. It was sort of a rush, but on page 2, there's a paragraph on the very bottom. My copy has got yellow highlighting on it. I don't know if yours does. But we thought the last word on that last paragraph, we thought that would force the permits or the approvals that he's got to be canceled. In discussion in a phone call this morning with Shane, he said, it's not going to work. So I went to another alternative that I thought would have killed his proposal. It was on the, I think it was also relative to, no, it was on the setbacks, the variance. And again, it was the second weakest link in his chain. Again, we were advised that no, it really wouldn't. So I'm going to take the rest of my time to pick up where I left off with the Planning Council appeal process. I told them that I wanted it to be moved forward. I understand their role. I understood Shane's role. And we don't have the authority to override criteria. My intention was to come here and beg that, and I know it can't be applied to our case because once you decide to change criteria, it only applies to cases going forward. The quasi-judicial process is ingenious. The criteria, however, I don't know how old a system it is, maybe it goes back to England, who knows, but it's very brief. It's a very short list of things that we can use to challenge. At least it seems that way to me because I can't find the criteria that I could use in this case. Like I said, on page 2, that bottom word there, that was the most likely criteria I could find. But where we are losing our property, and trees are property, I'm not talking just trees here, where one of the other neighbors is losing, being a corner lot, she's losing parts of her backyard. We didn't bargain for this. We were just minding our own business. There's something wrong in the process. There's something in there that does not give us the ability to defend our property. maybe Luba will, I don't know. If the city, if the employee has to do what his boss says, the boss has to do what the stockholders say, you are the stockholders. If you order some kind of modification in this system, in this process, if you see a way to do it without going to Luba, I'd appreciate that because Luba gets expensive. And I personally, and well, I think all of us really feel that we're in the right, that we have the prerogative to fend off these what amounts to a tax. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you have questions of me that this packet perhaps would prompt?
Mr.
That would
Lindsay,
extend my time, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. I do have a question of clarification if,
Yeah, you can ask
okay.
questions of him while he's here,
All
which
right.
is helpful because then it answers your question.
Thank you. Mr. Weckert, you said that the property in question is a corner property.
It's
I'm confused
Patty's
because,
property all these properties are on a string of lots. We don't get a corner property till you're way out into the east and the west. But with this lot that's been modified, from the back to the front, there is now last call it referred to as a driveway. We think of it as a road. It's a gravel road. I think your city required that it be paved. It was never paved. It's the wrong style rock. It's round pebbles. It's like golf balls. It's not crushed rock. But it's basically a road on the side of her property that puts cars and people back there. It's like she were on a corner lot. That's what I meant to infer. I'm sorry, it's a long way to answer your question.
okay, so so just to make sure I'm going to reflect back, that the characterization of this being a corner lot, that in the layout that you are seeing for this proposal, that in your estimation, it functions as a corner lot. Is that what you were trying to communicate?
It's actually there now. It's been that way for a year.
Okay.
It didn't, before the applicant purchased the property, it was very loosely gravelled. Michael came in, they brought in truckloads of gravel, fairly deep, very noisy, it just changes the temperament of Patty's lot. She had to put in a fence, try to control the noise and I don't know what else.
So just so I'm clear here, the requirement for putting in the ADU, and for those watching, that's an accessory dwelling unit. Hate to use those acronyms, but we want to be clear. Required also that there be there did not. I'm getting a no from Mr. Witham. Can you help
No.
me with that, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Yeah, there was an existing outbuilding on the property. There was a gravel driveway there, probably 15, 20 years ago that I can remember. But when they converted the outbuilding that was there already, they converted that to an accessory dwelling unit, I think it was a couple years ago. There was not a requirement from the city that they had to pave a driveway because we can't require parking for ADUs. So it was there. The applicant, I think, did bring in more rock and make it better. In this proposal, the applicant's request to partition the property, there is a requirement that we have placed as a condition of approval that the access easement area will be required to be paved, built to a durable, hard, dust-free surface, built according to the public works standards, minimum paved width, fire department turnaround, no parking signs, all of that. But that would be done at the time of platting or prior to the actual development of the property. But there wasn't a requirement that we made them pave anything with the ADU because we have no requirement to do that.
And under the current parking minimums by the state, we can't do that now anyway.
Yeah, the difference is that because they're creating a lot, you still have to be able to get to the lot
Gotcha.
for fire protection. So we have a little, if it would have been up on the street, then you're right, like people could divide land and not do anything. But in this case, because it's a lot behind an existing lot, they have to provide a legal means of access, which then triggers, if you're going to build an access, it has to meet our standard. So,
Okay, thank you very much. I did have, there was another comment you made, sir, that a neighbor was, quote, losing their backyard. Mr. Witham, is there a lot line adjustment here regarding the neighbor?
No.
I'm confused. Help-
I'm not sure, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Wickert? I'm confused, that was losing their backyard. Can you help me
My
understand that?
struggle is we're trying to do this in a short time period, and it's something that should take people sitting at a table for hours talking about. So I'll try to answer your question.
No, go ahead. Okay.
Patty has a beautiful backyard. It really, you walk back there in the summertime and you say, I've just entered a new realm. She's losing that sense of security and safety. She's being, I don't want to use inflammatory words, but she's being assaulted on her own property with the noise and the invasion of privacy. I hesitate to use words that are too graphic or something, but I feel so sorry for the poor woman. She's, it's just not right. The effort that she has put into that place, to suddenly have it changed in its nature, we didn't bargain for this. We didn't buy and sell that lot. We didn't have anything to say about it. I made an offer on it. The former owner's husband made an offer on it, but there's something going on in the dynamics of the social group that I don't know. I'm not part of their family, but things just don't fit. It's a strange situation, and we thought we got rid of that, but now we're getting additional social problems.
So, but to go back to.
I'm sorry,
my
I got
yeah.
off track.
No, and again, because I understand the parameters under which we have to make this decision, I'm trying to keep it between the goalposts here. So.
Quasi-judicial, that's where quasi-judicial
It's a
saves us
requirement.
all of this
Yes.
awkwardness.
So again, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm going to try to bring it to the goalpost that I understand, is that the addition of another house will not change the property line
No,
between the two properties.
no.
Okay, that's what I needed to have clear in my head, because I didn't understand the reference.
I
But
can
appreciate the
digress there
explanation.
because the proper line is, we know where the surveyors have it. The ADU is not properly so located. So when Patty puts in her fence, now her fence is 6 inches off. So Michael has gained 6 inches of her property. It's just odd little things like this that are cumulative. I've had 70 years living next to this property on the other side, and I've seen the pattern before. I know what some of these mistakes end up causing. They cause other mistakes. And we would like to have it all straightened out, but you can't. This stuff is all grandfathered in. It's sort of a mess of situations. And Michael bought it, and now he's in the middle of it. And we don't want to be in the middle of it ourselves.
So I'd like to follow up. So the surveying and so forth, that would be part of the conditions for the development, should this move forward?
Yes.
All of those surveys and so forth would be required to be confirmed using a new survey, is that correct?
Yeah, the property has to be surveyed and platted per ORS 92. I can't remember the number. There's a number. So yeah, it'll have to be all surveyed. As far as the ADU goes, it was an existing outbuilding and started its life as an outbuilding. There was a conversion. The development code allows for the conversion of an existing outbuilding to an ADU regardless of the setbacks. So while Mr. Weckert's correct in that if that was a brand new oh, we're building a brand new ADU, it's too close to the property line, which, frankly, if it was further away from the property line, there could have been a partitioning done, and that would be, okay, good, you're good to go. But in this case, it's an ADU, so it can continue to be an ADU. The survey work won't change that factor for the existing ADU, but it will lock down the property line between the neighbors to the east and to the west, and to the north as well, so.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, council? All right, thank you so much for coming this evening and sharing with us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, at this point, as I understand the order of operation, it is now time for people who would like to testify in favor of this proposal or of this variance. I don't have anybody signed up at this time. Is there anyone here who'd like to address the council on this matter in favor? Going once. Going twice. All right. At this point, I will ask for those who are opposed to this this appeal or this project, if they would like to come and testify at this time. Again, I have nobody signed up on the, but I'm opening it up for anyone who would like to address the council. Ma'am, if you would come to the microphone, I'd appreciate it. Okay. So what we would need to do is, anybody who would like to testify does need to be on the record and does require being at the microphone. I'm sorry, sometimes that can be intimidating, but we do need to get it on the record. So I would invite you to come if you would like to do so. All right. Trying to make it as easy as possible for you. So there's letters in the written record, and those are all entered into the record that we have all seen and been able to consider. All right, then we'll go to, as Mr. Lindsay said, other people who have a comment to make regarding this matter, neither in favor nor in opposition. Okay.
Can I get to comment on what was said from Mr. Wecker?
Mr. Lee, actually, your timing is just right, and now that I have ascertained there's no one here who would like to address the council in this matter, you as applicant now have 10 minutes to respond and to wrap up this hearing for us to then go to deliberation. Mr. Lee, the floor is yours for 10 minutes.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I heard what Mr. Wecker said earlier, and I just want to clarify to the council as well as anyone that's listening in or watching that it is absolutely not true that I am killing his dreams. He said that in the previous hearing, and he said it again today. This is not Twitter or Facebook, so I won't bore you with neighbors' hearsay. But I just want to say that it is totally not true. I have always been respectful to his property, as well as, Pat, who is to the east of my property. I know that she has concern about the garden in the back of her yard. She has a beautiful garden that she built. And I know that she's looking forward to retire because she is was, I'm not sure, a teacher at the elementary school nearby, so I do respect that. I have shared with them that I talked to my tenants about the noise, and I also addressed, their concern in the last hearing. I have not heard from any of the neighbors since then. Okay, so again, these things are not really worthy of your time because I don't see how did they have any relevancy to what my application is or the criteria that's involved. But again, I just wanted to say that the accusation that Mr. Weckert say earlier is totally not true. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Lindsay, as I understand the process, we have gone through the steps for this hearing. And I would ask council if you had any additional questions that you would like to ask of our staff.
Thank you. Or Madam Mayor, or if you just thought of another question of any of the people who've testified, because you might as well, before you close the hearing, take advantage of, if you have a question, asking it of any of the folks if you had it, so that it can become properly part of the record before you officially close the hearing.
All right. So with that, is there anything else that council needs to know, ask? Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Witham, my question, I guess, would go to you, is with the application to do the lot line adjustment, what do you call that, the adjustment of the property lines, and is there anything there that Mr. Lee and his property is not complying with current code or requirements from the city?
As far as the application that was made to divide the land, the staff report and the criteria that we walked through, they did demonstrate how they would meet each of our standards in the code. In certain cases, there are things that are conditioned upon approval. So it's like, he says the two lots are going to be large enough, which, yeah, looking at it, doing the math, they are going to be large enough. Don't exactly know what the size is going to be until it's surveyed out. So we have we say, okay, we're going to approve this application, but the condition is that it has to be surveyed and it has to meet the minimum lot size. It has to meet the minimum dimensional requirements. Has to meet the standard of, whatever that specific criteria is. With the exception, and that's why a variance was requested, with the exception of they are not going to have 5 feet from the edge of the 20-foot access easement to the existing home. So Mr. Lee would have to tear off a portion of that house to make that work and meet a 5-foot setback, which is why Mr. Lee requested a variance, and we recommend approval of that variance.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, and follow up.
Follow up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And my understanding is that 5-foot variance was also reviewed by the fire department besides yourselves, and that was approved. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. There were conversations actually on, Mr. Lee had actually asked about the possibility of doing a minor variance to the access easement width instead, because criteria for a minor variance is a little different than a major variance criteria. And the fire district actually preferred maintaining the 20-foot width in the easement and just having a smaller setback. There's no setback requirement based on the fire code. That's just a strict development code thing. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Council President Starr?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Witham, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. It's one property, it's one lot right now, one residence, and then an accessory dwelling unit in the back.
Yep.
They want to divide it into 2 lots. How many, and then the front lot will have the current house. The back lot, they're proposing to put 1 house only.
Yep.
And keep the ADU.
Correct.
Okay, not put multiple houses on the lot.
No, they're not. The applicant's proposal does show the existing home to be split off on its own lot, the ADU to be on its own lot with a home to be built on that lot. Because of how we define an accessory dwelling unit, in order for them to do anything else with that rear lot other than build a single family dwelling, they would have to tear down the ADU in order to do that. Because we allow an ADU only in conjunction with a single family dwelling in Keizer. And this gets into the whole weird middle housing stuff of you can do a duplex, you can do a triplex, you can do a fourplex. So arguably, if they went through the approval process and platted everything, and somebody went in and said, you know what, I've changed my mind, I'm going to tear down this ADU, then arguably you have a legally created parcel that can be developed with an allowed use in the zone. So that would be the only way that something other than a single-family home could be built on that rear property, though.
And that would still have to come through your,
Yeah, it'd just be a building permit at that point, because there'd be no land use decision happening.
but arguably they could put, if they did take down the accessory dwelling unit, they could decide to put a duplex or a triplex
Yeah, or a fourplex,
or a fourplex.
depending on how big the lot ended up
Whatever,
being.
okay.
That is true.
But as it stands now, this application
Yeah.
was only for
Yep.
a single-family residence in addition to the ADU.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anything else, council? All right, Mr. Lindsay, I'm going to close the public hearing unless you give me a reason not to.
Nope, thank you.
All right, public hearing is now closed. Council President Starr, would you put a motion on the table that we can then deliberate?
One moment, Madam Mayor, while I go back and find it. Okay, here we go. I move that Keizer City Council directs staff to prepare an order approving the application of Michael and Susie Lee for a partition and major variance on property located at 527 Dearborn Avenue North in Keizer, case number 2023-12.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council direct staff to prepare an order approving the application of Michael and Susie Lee for a partition and major variance on property located at 527 Dearborn Avenue North, Keizer, Oregon, case number 2023-12. Comments, discussion? All right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much for your hard work on this. I appreciate that. At this point, what I would like to do with the indulgence of council is take a 10-minute break, and then we'll reconvene at 8:50. We are on recess. All right, we'd like to reconvene the Keizer City Council, and we will continue on with our agenda. We are on item 8A for administrative action, which is a resolution, council determination regarding the adoption of personnel policies. Goes to Ms. DePina.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. Before you, you have a proposal regarding personnel policies. City Manager Brown, City Attorney Emeritus Johnson, and myself recommend a change in practice regarding personnel policy management to streamline and simplify the review and approval process with the goal of a more timely approach to policy updates and reduced workload for all parties involved, including you all. The recommended change has been presented to the Personnel Policy Committee, which I'll reference as PPC, the rest of this presentation, and it has their support. For background, the current Personnel Policy Manual was adopted in full in 2010, and we've had 3 minor amendments since then. 1 in 2010 regarding cell phone stipends, and 2 in 2022 regarding the addition of Juneteenth as a holiday and providing special assignment premiums to sergeants for a handful of duties and specialty duties. And then in January 2023, City Manager Brown and City Attorney Emeritus Johnson and myself met with the PPC to discuss the purpose of the PPC and the procedures that we follow. As a part of the discussion, we discussed policies that should be approved by the City Council and those which should not require approval beyond the City Manager. Examples of those to be approved by the council would include any policies with discretionary fiscal impact and any policies that also apply to the City Council. Examples of those we propose to be approved by the City Manager include any policies which are operational or specific to personnel, as well as policies that are required due to changes in state or federal law. We discussed the subject again in July and October, and again, support was confirmed, including a statement that the PPC wants to be deliberate about staying in their lane with respect to involvement in personnel policies. Our current situation is that we have proposed policies to remain under council approval and proposed policies to go just to the City Manager for approval. We have attached a document that shows which of those policies are, as well as a current Personnel Policy Manual table of contents. We're asking the council to support changing the process going forward. Over the coming months, we anticipate finalizing work on the update of the city's full Personnel Policy Manual, and then would bring forward those policies and sections of policies requiring council approval. When we bring those policies for council approval, we would also request the repeal of prior Personnel Policy Manual resolutions. We're not making that request at this time, as that would inactivate our current policies before the updated ones are ready for implementation. So we have a timing issue. The strategic impact is anticipated improved efficiency on implementation. It supports draft Goal 6 of strong and sustainable government in our draft Keizer strategic plan, which includes the action item of assessing and evaluating organizational efficiency and implementing recommendations. There would be no direct fiscal impact, but there's anticipated or expected that there'd be some cost savings and less staff time and council time and workload with the reduction of administrative time reviewing and approving policies only for procedural purposes. The practice change would take effect on the finalization of the attached resolution. Currently, the City Council is charged with approval of all city personnel policies. Therefore, the City Council must agree with the change in practice that no longer requires all policies to be approved at the council level. So the alternatives are adopt the attached resolution or take no action and continue to review all recommended changes to personnel policies. And our recommendation from the staff and the Personnel Policy Committee is adoption of the attached resolution. And I'm available for any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions on the proposal or the staff report? Council President Starr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. Tapina, just a clarification on the policies that would not come to City Council. If those are updated or they have to be rewritten, would those policies go through and just like have a review by the city attorney before they're adopted by the city manager? What's the process?
Our practice and process is any change in city policy, especially after, if you adopt this resolution, is the entire executive leadership team would meet and agree on the changes before we propose moving forward with them. We would also have additional conversations and feedback from our employees and including our unions.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions? Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For informational purposes and for the public, who is on the PPC?
That is the mayor and Councilor Laura Reed and Council President Shani Starr.
Just those three people?
Those three people, I
And
staff
yourself?
it along with Kristen, the other half of the HR department. And often we will have folks visit the meeting by request, depending on what the topic is. Most often it will be the city manager or the assistant city manager, finance director.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to follow up on that, that is one of the appointments made at the beginning of each biennium when we are doing council assignments. So it's just one of the standing committees that we have had
Can I
for a long time.
add something?
Council President Starr, and I'll go to Councilor Cross.
I just also want to add that those meetings are noticed and posted on the website and open to the public so that there is transparency.
Thank you. Councilor Cross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So if and when changes are made, is that something that council will be made aware of by the city manager?
I wouldn't have any problem with that.
Not saying that you would or wouldn't have a problem, but more if there was a big shift in a policy that we would know if we're out in the public that we knew that changed.
Yeah, I think it would behoove me to put that in front of you for my own safety.
Thank you.
Security.
Mr. Pina, is the personal policy manual on our website?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it's a public document as well. All right, thank you very much. Any other questions? Council President Starr?
I move that the Keizer City Council adopt Resolution R2024, council determination regarding adoption of personnel policies.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council adopt Resolution R 2024, council determination regarding adoption of personnel policies. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. That takes us to item 8B, non-represented employee salary survey, citywide internal pay equity review, and additional pay adjustment for all non-represented employees. This goes to Mr. Pina.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I was not trying to compete for the longest subject line, but there we have it. The non-represented employee salary survey and citywide internal pay equity review have been completed with 9 classifications recommended to be adjusted, impacting 16 employees retroactively to July 1, 2022, and 14 employees effective January 1, 2024. The recommendations from the executive leadership team, supported by the Personnel Policy Committee, are to direct staff to prepare a resolution accepting the non-represented employee salary survey, the citywide internal pay equity review recommendations, and a resolution accepting a mid-year additional pay adjustment for all non-represented employees for consideration at the February 20th, 2024 City Council meeting. So this requires a little bit of background because we've been at this for quite some time. The city policy, starting off, dictates that subject to available funding and budget approval, salary surveys for all classifications will be performed on a schedule of no less than every 4 years. The last salary survey for non-represented employees took place in 2017. For represented employees, this requirement is met by just the general practice of bargaining, which usually occurs at least every 3 years and sometimes more often than that, depending on how bargaining ends up. For the non-represented employees, 4 years is the standard that we currently have in policy. In August 2017, the first impact of Oregon's Pay Equity Act became effective when we were, as employers, prohibited from seeking pay histories of any applicants. And we put that in place just prior to that provision taking place and started planning for the rest of the pay equity legislation, which was to come over the next 2 years. In January 2019, the majority of Oregon Pay Equity Act's requirements went into effect, and it expanded prohibiting only sex-based discrimination to encompass 9 more classes. Race, color, religion, sexual orientation, national origin, marital status, veteran status, disability, and age, which in Oregon is 18 and over. It also defined work of a comparable character as work that requires substantially similar knowledge, skill, effort, responsibilities, and working conditions in the performance of work, regardless of the job description or title. In other words, it said it doesn't matter what we call a position. If we assess that it's doing similar work, it should be paid similarly. In July 2019, an additional 15 legislative actions passed that required additional work for both preparation for the city's planned internal pay equity review and the personnel policy manual update project. The importance of the internal pay equity review is the act actually has in it that you as an employer can somewhat protect yourself if you've done a study, a pay equity study within 3 years of when a claim has been filed. So all employers who were paying attention to that act were trying to figure out how to make that happen as soon as possible. But at any case, before claims could actually start being filed in court. In June 2020, the Portland State University Total Employer Cost of Compensation Program was dissolved without notice. We were participating as a partner in that program and had high hopes that it would significantly cut down on the work that we had to do to prepare for salary surveys. Because that program dissolved, we had to shift gears, transfer funds budgeted for the program, and help fund an intergovernmental agreement with local government personnel services, because our past and continuing practice has been, for lack of another resource, the Human Resources Director does the salary survey, but always requires a third-party review and recommendations so that we ensure there's no conflicts of interest. Additional unplanned human resource service intensive events occurred in 2020 through 2023. I'm sharing this in the report just to explain why, with a salary survey and an internal equity review, which are certainly very high priority items, we unfortunately didn't have a choice about having to put some of that activity on hold. The items not limited to, but including, are the pandemic response beginning in March 2020 and ongoing for 2 years. Our attempt at a Springbrook Human Resource Information System implementation between October 20 and June 21. The cyber attack that the city suffered in June 2020. the departure of the former city manager and related transitions beginning in March 2021 through April 2022. And to put a cherry on top of it, Oregon Paid Family Medical Leave Act, which passed in January 2023 and is ongoing. All of these items very labor intensive and process intensive for your two-person human resources department. Salary survey data collection began in January 21, was completed and provided to local government personnel services, I'll refer to as LGPS, in September 2021. They provided recommendations to the executive leadership team for review in December of 2021. In January 2022, the executive leadership team met, discussed the recommendations, and agreed to follow those recommendations, which were to hold any pay adjustment decisions until an internal pay equity review could be completed. The goal was completion by the end of the calendar year. That was by the end of January 2022. However, due to all of those other things I previously listed, the internal pay equity review didn't actually begin until January 2023. It was completed by May. Legal review began in June and was completed by October, when the exec leadership team review then began and was completed in January of 2024. It just so happens that January 2024 is when civil litigation becomes available as a course of action for Oregon employees who feel they're being paid unfairly based on the requirements of pay equity legislation. So the good news is we've done our review and it's in place, and with the recommendations being made, we have very limited potential liability going forward. Current situation is the executive leadership team has confirmed the final recommendations of the non-represented employee salary survey and citywide pay equity review. The results were confirmed on Tuesday, January 23rd. ELT members met with all the impacted employees as well as employee groups that expressed specific interest in the results on January 23rd through 25th. In addition, information about the status of the project was shared at an all-staff meeting that took place on January 25th. In all cases, we've been clear that the results or recommendations at this time must be reviewed and approved by the City Council. Presentation of the summary information was made to the PPC on Monday, January 29th. Attached is a summary document that shows all the existing City of Keizer classifications as they are now on the left column, and the recommended adjustments in the second column on the right. There's also additional information on the reverse regarding each classification recommended to be adjusted. At this point, I would like to point out there is an error in the packet. Item C says there are 9 classifications out of 62 recommended to be adjusted. That should be out of 43. 62 is our total classifications. 43 is the number of unrepresented classifications. You'll see 62 used later in the report, which is where I probably pulled the wrong number, which is a 20.9% change as compared to 23% in 2017. And much higher percents in the prior 2 years, 62 in 2013 and 59 in 2007. Yes, that means over half the classifications had to be adjusted in those years. So since then, we have, I think, done a good job as a leadership team, and our supervisors have done well in making sure we're keeping all of our job descriptions as accurate as possible and addressing class changes as needed, and also adhering to the intent of the Equal Pay Act, even though it's taking us until now to actually do our internal review. We have been following the practices that would lead us to having lesser impacts ever since it was implemented. That would include things like when we hire somebody new, if they have so many years of experience and we decide we're bringing them in at a certain pay level, we have to look at all of the employees in that same class and their pay levels and make sure that what we're doing is equitable. If we add a new benefit, such as we say somebody, for example, a police officer can have a balance of vacation leave when they start, we have to make sure that that is fair with all employees that have the same kind of history and background. So we've been doing that for the last many years. Included in the 9 classifications are 16 employees who would receive retroactive adjustments, as previously mentioned, 14 who would receive adjustments beginning January 1st. These adjustments take into consideration all the results of the 21-22 salary survey, which, as I had mentioned, had been completed but placed on hold, and the internal pay equity review that was recently completed. They fell into a number of categories. Some were recommended by the salary survey for a potential pay adjustment, and the internal pay equity review confirmed that that was appropriate. Some, the salary survey recommended a potential adjustment and the internal pay equity did not support it. So those were cases where either the salary survey said you should consider paying more or consider paying less, and internal equity said, no, they're fine right where they are. The salary survey confirmed pay was appropriate for a few of the classifications, but when we did the internal pay equity review, there was a required adjustment upward. That means when we looked at all of those categories that are outlined in the legislation and compared those categories across the board with those classifications, there were a couple that rose above, even though in a salary survey, when compared to other positions with that same title out in the rest of the world, they appeared to be perfectly fine. I think that is a good reflection of how the city of Keizer uses positions differently than our comparator organizations. And it is one of the reasons why folks are starting to question whether salary surveys are an effective tool in the future, because everyone uses positions differently. The salary survey did confirm pay was appropriate. In one case, the internal equity review required an adjustment downward. We wouldn't be able to do that based on pay equity legislation because it specifically says you cannot move a position down as a result. You can only move other positions up. So in this case, though, this particular classification is not in use and there's no person in it. So we have the ability to make that adjustment. So with PPC support, we're introducing the results to the City Council as a whole with a request for direction to return for resolution approval at the February 20th meeting. We see this topic as a compliance issue rather than a policy decision, given the recommended action meets legislative requirements for pay equity. As we've discussed in the past, while the salary survey is complicated in general and the pay equity review is even more complicated, given the legislation only defined one factor of the 5 listed, we started with a vendor product that had to customize it to the City of Keizer's operations with an end result of 13 different job characteristics, each with its own scoring criteria, which had to be applied to each of the 62 classifications and then cross-referenced and qualified. So we have done more than our due diligence to say that we've met the intent of the act. I should point out that while the salary survey is for the unrepresented employees who are not addressed with collective bargaining agreements, internal pay equity is every position. So that was done on all positions, not just the unrepresented, and will continue to be reviewed on an ongoing basis. The council will recall concerns raised at the conclusion of the Keizer Police Association collective bargaining in July 23, that the city ensures that we are fair and equitable to our non-represented employees with respect to pay and benefits. Included in the presentation to PPC on January 29th this year was a recommendation for additional pay adjustment for all non-represented employees. Based on our ongoing review of such increases for our represented employees, as well as the increases provided by our comparable municipalities for the classifications that are not represented in the city of Keizer, the ELT recommends a 1% pay adjustment for non-represented employees effective January 1, 2024. That is the reason for the request for a separate resolution for approval at the February 20th meeting. I would point out that in the 2023-24 fiscal year, the average increase for non-rep positions for our comps was 4.6% and ours was 3%. So that is the reason for the 1% request. Essentially, we're trying not to fall too far behind so that the next time we do another 4-year review, we're not making major adjustments, just as we've tried to make that the case the last 2 reviews. And we will be doing this again sooner rather than later. Not we, but the city. I might be available for contract. So what we want to make sure folks understand is this is much like the 1.5% pay adjustment that you graciously agreed to apply to all employees some time ago. This is intended to address continued impact of cost of living increases and where we lag behind at this time. And it's always challenging to consider pay increases when we have many, many other fiscal challenges and a very tight budget. We believe it's critical to invest our employees, given the only way we're able to operate on such lean staffing is by having excellent and loyal employees. We don't want to lose them or perhaps worse, send a message that we don't value them as much as their coworkers. So I'm off my pulpit for the employees, but financial impact, yes, this costs some money. The impact of implementing the non-rep salary survey and the citywide internal pay equity review is $145,100. Fortunately, we have $100,000 that was previously set aside, knowing that this review was going to be completed this year. And we have existing additional contingencies available in the general fund and other impacted funds to cover the adjustment. And those dollar figures are listed in your packet. The financial impact of implementing a mid-year cost of living increase for non-represented employees is $36,100. To provide appropriations for the additional expenditures, a supplemental budget would be necessary to move the amounts from contingency to personnel services. Existing contingencies are available in the general fund and other impacted funds to provide for the adjustment. The topics would be returning to council at the February 20th meeting upon your direction. Again, implementation of the non-rep salary survey recommendations would be retroactive to July 1, 2022. The implementation of the citywide internal pay equity recommendations would be effective January 1, 2024, and implementation of the non-rep employee pay adjustment recommendation would also be January 1, 2024. A question asked during PPC was, upon approval, what would be the processing time for all of this to take place? And it would be our intent to have those adjustments reflected in the payroll following council approval. The current city policy, as previously mentioned, states that subject to available funding and budget approval, salary surveys will be performed no less than every 4 years. The Equal Pay Act requires all employers, regardless of size, to ensure workers are paid based on the work of comparable character, regardless of job description or title, and lists all the factors, which includes seniority, merit systems, systems that measure earning by quantity or quality, workplace location, travel, education, training, and/or experience. Our alternatives at this time are accept our results of the salary survey and the internal pay equity review and the mid-year payment adjustment for non-rep employees, take no action and not accept the results of any, accept the results of the salary survey and pay equity review, but not the mid-year pay adjustment, or vice versa, accept the mid-year pay adjustment and not the non-represented salary survey and internal pay equity review. And of course, our recommendation with the support of the Personnel Policy Committee is that you direct us to prepare a resolution for those 3 items to come back at the February 20th meeting. I am available for any questions.
All right, thank you very much for very comprehensive work and report. Questions? Councilor Cross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Peanut, what does that dollar amount look like if it wasn't retroactive all the way back to 2022? If it was just at the beginning of this fiscal year?
I will defer to our finance director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. It would be about half of the dollar amount, so the $145,100 would just be cut in half, so about $72,000 roughly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Councilor Hussman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Also for Mr. Wood, what does this mean as far as the supplemental budget and some of the timelines as far as your workload is concerned, and what it is that we need to do basically to make sure we're hitting our dates and gates?
Sure. In order to do a supplemental budget at the next council meeting, we would need to notice it or send the notice to the Keizer Times tomorrow. And then that would be included in the Friday edition of Keizer Times.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Do we have to do the supplemental budget at the next meeting?
We don't know.
I mean, I know we have to do a supplemental budget. My question is timing. Do we have to do it at the very next meeting, or can this process go forward? And then if we have other supplemental budget, needs that we have to adjust as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, can we do them all together?
We could do that route. My preference would be, since we know the dollar amounts, we might as well do them now. The cost to publish them into the Keizer Times is fairly minimal.
Oh, okay.
We're talking $100 or so.
Oh, then, okay. I thought it was more than that, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kohler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is, the $181,000 that we're talking about, do these numbers also include the increased amounts that we'd be required to pay to PERS and those kind of things?
Yes, it does include all the various forms of taxes, retirement, PERS, all those are included in those numbers, yes.
And then just
Follow up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is the retro pay mandated by this legislation?
The recommendation to retroactively pay the salary survey recommended changes is not mandated by legislation. It is the recommendation of the exec leadership team, based primarily on the fact that it was not the fault of the employees that we could not complete the review until now. We've been very open, and the employees do know that there was a salary survey done, and they've been waiting for us to finish the internal equity review for the last couple of years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Cross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I went into another question. Okay, so yes, so they had been waiting for this to be done, is what I heard. Now I skipped to another question. I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. But so executive team wants it to go back to 2022, right? But it would save half the money with the budget restraints if we went and we started it maybe halfway. Is that what I heard from you, Mr. Wood?
Councilor Cross, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Other comments or questions? Ms. Tapina, one of the policies that the city's been operating on as long as I can remember is that even though our non-representatives are not represented by a collective bargaining agreement, that we treat our unrepresenteds with the same consideration regarding pay and benefits, and the Pay Equity Act also informs that conversation. So are these recommendations based on both our policy and the intent of the Pay Equity Act?
That is correct.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay. There are 3 items here, so do we want to take them one at a time or do them in block?
It looks like one really big motion.
But the way it's written is one really big motion with 3 components, and unless there is objection, we can make them move them in block. Okay, I'm hearing no objection, so Council President Starr?
I move that Keizer City Council direct staff to prepare a resolution to accept the non-represented employee salary survey, citywide internal pay equity review recommendations, and the additional pay adjustment for all non-represented employees for adoption at the February 20th, 2024 City Council meeting. In addition, prepare a supplemental budget adjustment resolution to transfer from contingency to personnel services to provide appropriations for the non-represented employee salary survey, citywide internal pay equity review recommendation, and the additional pay adjustment for non-represented employees.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council direct staff to prepare a resolution to accept the non-represented employee salary survey, citywide internal pay equity review recommendations, and the additional pay adjustment for all non-represented employees for adoption at the February 20, 2024 City Council meeting. In addition, prepare a supplemental budget adjustment resolution to transfer from contingency to personnel services to provide appropriations for the non-represented employee salary survey, citywide internal pay equity review, and the recommendation and the additional pay adjustment for non-represented employees. Discussion. I'm sorry, Councilor Cross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. These are tough conversations, so I would just say that I would probably say meet in the middle, because we're going to have some tough conversations with budget moving forward, and there is a lot of dollars going out, and so, yeah, that's kind of, I just want to put that on the record.
Thank you very much. Councilor Kohler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excuse me, I'm about out of water, but thank you, Mr. Lindsay, for helping me get that earlier. But something just feels a little bit wrong with the employees saying, when I said the executive team, the employees saying, yeah, let's give everybody a raise and do the back date. So just something feels wrong about that. But anyway, you ask about comments, something just doesn't feel right about that.
So thank you for that. Having looked at the extensive material that has been provided to us and the fact that the original intent was to do this in a more timely fashion, and Mr. Pina did a really good job summarizing the 3 or 4 years of what the heck that our large team has been dealing with. And also our policy of making sure that our non-represented employees are treated with the same consideration for their skill set and appropriate pay level. Also with the pay equity, that this was the time at which this should have happened was in 2022, and to make it right now is to make it right for the non-represented employees. Our other employees who are represented in the 2 collective bargaining agreements had a team going to bat for them. So I'm very much in favor of moving forward with this recommendation, understanding that this provides that same benefit to our non-represented employees and the same consideration for their skill set and their the appropriate salary range as for our representatives. So that's why I'm going to be coming out in favor. Further discussion? Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also just wanted to underscore the point that we planned for this. Again, this has been a long time in coming. We have budgeted for this retroactive pay, and it is so it's already covered in the budget. And yes, there will need to be a supplementary budget, but again, that was already planned for.
Thank you. Anything further? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no.
No.
Motion passes 6-1 with the no, Councilor Cross. Thank you very much. All right, let's go to item 8C, which is resolution amending City of Keizer Council Rules of Procedure, amending Resolution R 2022-3269. This goes to Ms. Bissett.
At the January 2nd, 2024 City Council meeting, the council was asked to consider proposed changes to streamline the minutes process and to provide clarity regarding the intention of the electronic mail and social media sections of the council rules of procedure as it relates to public records. The City Council made a motion at that meeting to direct staff to prepare a resolution to incorporate the changes specific to sections 13.1 and section 19.1 to incorporate the changes. So we've brought those before you in this resolution.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions on the staff report or the proposed changes to the council rules? Council President Starr.
I move that the Keizer City Council adopt Resolution R 2024, amending City of Keizer City Council Rules of Procedure and amending Resolution R 2022-3269.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council adopt Resolution R 2024, amending City of Keizer City Council Rules of Procedure, amending Resolution R 2022-3269. Discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. That takes us to item 8D, a resolution authorizing Keizer Heritage Foundation to exhibit Thomas Dove Keizer on a Morgan horse maquette. And this goes to Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I think this will be the easiest thing you'll do tonight. This is an agreement to have the Keizer Heritage Foundation take the small model statue of Thomas Keizer on a Morgan horse, not to be confused with another kind of horse. This is also known as a maquette. And that will allow the Keizer Heritage Foundation to exhibit the horse and Mr. Keizer.
All right. And for anybody wondering, anybody here in council chambers, you want to see it, turn around, it's sitting there. I can look right at it. Under the City of Keizer sign is the maquette of Thomas Dove Keizer. So that's what we're talking about. It is one of two in existence. And has been here, it was used as the model from which the then City Council approved the expenditure of funds for the full-size statue out in front of City Hall. And I'm very pleased that the Keizer Heritage Foundation is looking to create a whole display around our city founder, and includes this maquette. Any questions on the proposal or the staff report? Council President Starr.
I move that the Keizer City Council approve Resolution R 2024, authorizing Keizer Heritage Foundation to exhibit the Thomas Dove Keizer on a Morgan horse maquette.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council approve Resolution R 2024, authorizing Keizer Heritage Foundation to exhibit Thomas Dove Keizer on a Morgan horse maquette. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Fantastic. Item 8E is a discussion on whether all future fees for service created by the Keizer City Council that do not currently exist and are not directly related to a Keizer utility would require a public vote by ballot by the citizens of Keizer, requested by Councilors Kohler, Cross, and Duran. Counselor Kohler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Do I read this whole thing that I did, or what's the best way to start this discussion?
This is your agenda item, so if you want to, however you want to introduce it and what the three of you would like to do as next steps.
Okay, so the background on this, in 2018, there were 2 new fees established for additional funding for the police department, the Parks Division of Public Works. State limits on property taxes, measures 5 and 50, were creating issues with the general fund. Existing and need for services were beginning to be harder to accomplish with the available resources. Debates over spending $1,000 or $11,000 to repair tennis courts or put it towards skate park or other things were very real and actively discussed in Parks Board and other committees. Meanwhile, police staffing had not recovered to pre-2008 numbers, and growing populations demanded more services. So there was, through 2016, June, and spring of 2018, there was a massive public engagement process started from the Parks Board and then evolved into work with the police department and the effort to inform the public of existing levels of service where there were gaps and what opinions existed to shore up those gaps. To summarize the next little bit of all this, there was a ton of work that was done. We had to decide whether to do a levy, to do a bond, to do something, but the levels of service that the public required was not going to be able to be met by the amount of money that we had coming in. So a lot of it was, the police fee was pretty straightforward. We needed to have some additional officers, and the parks fee was a little bit more difficult because you never know exactly how that's going to be taken by the public. But we knew that we had to do something. So again, extensive outreach was done. There was a lot of surveys, there was a lot of different studies, public meetings, and things that were done. The surveys performed exceptionally well and provided council with information to make a choice to either enact the fees or send it to the vote of the public. It was only because of the robust public engagement process that the council at the time felt comfortable with moving forward. But it was passed with the intention of a delay that would allow any resident of Keizer to come forward with a process to defer it to the ballot. After the period passed, no one came forward and the fees were enacted. So today, the same effects from measure 5 and 50 are happening the same way. We have things that we'd like to do that we can't do. Other jurisdictions have attempted and failed to enact fees on their own with little or no public engagement. Keizer set the standard for excellence and public process at a time when it made sense. While the existing council has the historic memory of how these fees were enacted, the weight and needs and wants compared to the resources continue to plague the budget. Regardless, Keizer continues to press forward and be extremely responsible with the budget. It should be stated categorically that the intent of the councilors making this proposal, it should be the intent that the council make no changes in the current parks and police fees, that they should remain in existence. However, all future fees for service created by the Keizer City Council that are not mandated by federal law, Oregon revised statute, Oregon administrative rule, or do not currently exist or are not directly related to a Keizer utility service or the existing parks and police fee should require a public vote by ballot by the citizens of Keizer. To go a step further, it should also be stated that any potential new fees should be vetted by the council through a well thought out and similarly extensive public research process that was used to establish the current parks and police fee. I believe the voters deserve an opportunity to craft the language and the elements and be referred to the council for consideration of a vote. By allowing the public to be a part of the process from start to finish, the city of Keizer can only benefit from what it does best, and that is to engage the people of our city. And then there's a sample of different ways that future proposals might be done, and there's 12 steps on that. We're going to exempt, we're not talking about changing any existing parks or police fee for service, but allowing a vote on new fees. So what we recommend is that the City of Keizer, the City Council direct staff to draft a resolution for discussion purposes. Such a resolution would require a public vote for any fee for new services along the lines discussed above.
Thank you very much. Anything further from Councilors Cross or Joanne? So as I understand this, the examples here, again, very well thought out. Would the council be open to having a work session on this so we can talk about what ifs, understand the different repercussions, and avoid unintended consequences? So that would be, I know the recommendation is to go to a resolution, but to engage with us, with the public in a work session to flesh this out. Is that an acceptable next step to the council? Councilor Cross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am open to a work session in mostly all subjects. In this case, I feel like where I'm coming from, it's pretty cut and dry. I mean, the way that we're going right now, I mean, we heard it tonight with Marion Polk Food Share, how people are struggling day by day. We're not asking to change anything. We're saying just no new fees or taxes. That just builds trust in our community. It's not anything that we can't take away later. I mean, I trust our city. I trust our people. They are worth the return on investment. That's how I feel.
Thank you very much. Absolutely, every resident of this community is worth their value, their input, their thoughts, and how we are working together to provide services in a responsible and responsive manner. Absolutely agree, which is why I would encourage us to take the time, work through this to make sure we don't create unintended consequences, and that we consider things from all angles regarding the different types of services we provide. Listen to the community about the services that we need, want, moving forward so we can craft this in a responsive manner. Also, to hear new ideas, one of the most difficult things that any public entity engages with is the public participation process. I mean, we have big, huge, hairy plans with so many agencies on public participation process, PPP, because it is so important that we get it right. So I would encourage us to have that conversation about what that looks like and how we can use the collective wisdom of our community to craft public participation process and how we're going to apply it for fiscal responsibility. So that would be what I would hope that we would go to and have that deep dive conversation with the entire community. What I would entertain at this point is put a motion on the table for either the recommended or the alternative recommended next step and see where we want to go. Councilor Husman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to follow up to your line of sight with respect to the work on this, how much time do we need essentially to gather any sort of public feedback on this type of proposal? Because this is fundamentally the first time that we've substantively brought this out with proposed steps a more full-fledged proposal of how we might incorporate fees that do not currently exist. It's a bit chicken and egg, I understand that, but to what extent do we need public participation in talking about this before we even go to a work session as a council?
My response would be that public engagement would be work session. So it would be both us, we can invite public comment in a work session. We can craft that in a way that's going to meet our needs as a council to get the input that we need. If we need more than one work session, we have the liberty to do that. This is an important conversation that needs to include points of view and options to make sure we get it as close to what the people of Keizer need as possible. So I'm going to go to Councilor Cross, and I'll go back to Councilor Kohler.
Just a quick question. So, but just clarifying question. So right now, I mean, I want to listen to what Councilor Kohler has to say. Hypothetically, we can make a motion still and then go and then just have discussion after that, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've had a couple of people say, why would you make this proposal? And to me, the easy answer to that is the number of people that have approached me and said, I would really like to have the opportunity to vote on any new fees that come through. And because of the number of people that have talked to me about that, I'm looking at like 25 or 30, that I just feel like that this is something we need to thoroughly discuss and consider because, again, the number of people that have said, this is the biggest thing that I'm concerned about.
Thank you. Okay. Open to a motion on the table.
I move that the Keizer City Council refer this fee issue to a future work session.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to refer this issue to a future work session. Discussion? Councilor Kohler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As long as we don't have the work session in November, as long as we do it in a timely manner, I don't have a problem with that.
Thank you very much. Yes, we do have a very full schedule coming up with a number of work sessions that this council has requested. So we have to work around that. And we know that we do ask a lot of all of us and of our staff to make ourselves available. So I'm going to return that one, say, council, you're going to make yourselves available for these work sessions. Councilor Husband.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Kohler, if I may, how timely is timely? Because we do have a budget period coming up in May. We have an election period coming up in November. I would expect that given that a public election is an end goal with respect to this type of fee proposal, the idea being that new fees would be before the people and all, what are you guys thinking as far as timelines?
Can I answer that?
Of course, Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I understand we have budget meetings and all that coming up, which is taking most of our work sessions for that period, but I think if we have this just as soon as we can after that, that would be acceptable.
Okay. And I would refer councilors to item 13 on our agenda, which is agenda input, and to what Councilor Kohler said, upon conclusion of the budget process, that's when the calendar will be opening up some that we can schedule concentrated time on this and other issues that the council identifies that need to be gone to work session. What I'm finding with this particular council is that your engagement in-depth conversations on issues is laudable and I think really represents the people of Keizer well. And I think it's important that people know that we are taking our time to be deliberative on issues. So I appreciate that. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no.
No.
Noes, raise your hand. Okay, motion passes. 4-3, the noes are Cross, Duran, and Husband. Thank you very much. So coming to a work session near you. That takes us to item 8F, a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the sale agreement and receipt for earnest money for Verta Crossing LLC for the purchase of a portion of property adjacent to Claggett Creek. And this, Mr. Brown? Or is this to Mr. Lindsay? Oh, I am wrong. I should write these things down, Mr. Lawyer. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excuse me, the Public Works Department initiated design work for a wetland enhancement project on city-owned property on the east side of Claggett Creek across from Claggett Creek Park. Staff shared the concept with Clutch Industries, the developers of the multifamily project known as Verta Crossing. During the initial phases of the development, Clutch Industries contacted staff to see if the city was interested in obtaining some additional property for the wetlands enhancement project. Staff evaluated the opportunity and determined the additional property would benefit the proposed wetland project, in fact, benefit it immensely. The acquisition of approximately 2.14 acres from Verta Crossing will benefit the city and the project by providing area for the planned boardwalk traversing the property from Shamar Road to Dearborn Avenue to be constructed mostly out of the proposed wetlands, of the identified wetlands on the project, the city current on the city-owned property. The ability to construct the proposed boardwalk out of the wetland boundaries will save a considerable amount of money and greatly reduce the impact on wetlands that the project aims to enhance, not impact. Staff negotiated with Verta Crossing for the acquisition of the approximately 2.14 acre parcel and reached an agreement that is contained in the sale agreement and receipt for earnest money document attached to the staff report. The purchase price is $46,654 or 50 cents a square foot, which is substantially less than the adjacent developable ground. The developable ground is valued at about $4.50 per square foot per the county real market value. I will tell you that the developers told me what they paid for the property, and it's much more than that. The strategic impact of this proposal is the acquisition of this property is listed as a goal in the City Council adopted 2021 Parks Master Plan. Funds for this purchase of the property are available in the adopted fiscal year 23-24 Park Improvement Fund budget. The cost of the property is, as I said before, is $46,654. The city will also be paying the cost of a land survey, the property line adjustment, construction of sidewalks on the property being purchased, and a 5-foot vinyl coated chain link fence along the new property line. Authorization of this property now will enable the project design and permitting process to be complete in time for 2025 construction. City Council authorization is necessary for all property acquisition in the city. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the staff report or the proposed property action? Council President Starr.
I move the Keizer City Council adopt Resolution R2024, authorizing the city manager to sign the sale agreement and receipt for earnest money with Verta Crossing LLC for purchase of a portion of property adjacent to Claggett Creek.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council adopt Resolution R2024, authorizing the city manager to sign the sale agreement and receipt for earnest money with Verta Crossing LLC for purchase of a portion of property adjacent to Claggett Creek. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. That concludes administrative action for this evening. Council President Starr, would you please read the items on tonight's consent calendar?
Absolutely. Our consent calendar is item A, approval of January 2nd, 2024 regular session minutes. Item B, approval of January 8th, 2024 work session minutes. Item C, approval of the January 15th, 2024 emergency city council meeting minutes. Item D, approval of the January 18th, 2024 city council and traffic safety Bikeways and Pedestrian Committee work session minutes. And item E, approval of the January 22nd, 2024 work session minutes.
Thank you very much. Are there any polls? Seeing none, Council President Starr.
I move that the Keizer City Council adopt consent calendar items A through E.
Second.
The consent calendar has been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. The other business, the time is provided for the mayor, city council members, or staff an opportunity to bring new oral matters before the council that are not on tonight's agenda. Mr. Brown, does staff have any additional items for tonight for our consideration?
Madam Mayor and Council, the staff does not have any new or additional items for consideration.
All right, thank you very much. Council members, any other business to bring forward tonight before we go to reports? All right, let's go to then staff updates. So I'm going to start just in the line, and Mr. Pina's up first.
I have no updates for tonight, but I thank the council for your time and attention through a very long meeting.
Thank you. We thank you for the tremendous work and expertise that went into everything that we heard tonight. Appreciate it. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I wanted to bring to your attention that you asked for our online bill to be made easier, and it has been made easier. On the front page, there is a button, one-click button to pay my utility bill.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, that makes it great. For those who are not using auto pay, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for the quick response for the folks in Keizer. Appreciate that. Mr. Wood.
Just looking forward to seeing you all next week at the first long-range planning task force meeting. It's going to be fun.
Yes, it is. Ms. Bissett.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief.
Nothing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Mr. Lawyer.
Nothing more tonight. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Witham.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Mr. Lindsay.
Sure. I appreciate having been here now about halfway through my transition time with Shannon Johnson over here. And I just want to report that he's downloading quite a lot of Keizer information to me. And that I think it's not only going well, but I'm very, very happy to be here. And so I appreciate it. And looking back through the minutes that you guys just did on your consent agenda, you guys said some very nice things about me before I showed up. And you know what, that actually bodes well. I mean, that makes employees feel really good. So I might as well just report that as well. But otherwise, I'm going to be working hard.
It's all right. Take note of those.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I would like to circle back and thank you for that for our planning department. Over the weekend, I was speaking with one of our residents who is new to the area, needed to find out something about this thing called sprinkler system and some sort of gizmo that was in there he'd never seen before because he'd never had one. And he said, I went to City Hall, talked to the folks at the front desk here, and he said the customer service was just fantastic. So I wanted to pass that on. That really helped out somebody who just needed to find out, got the information they needed. So thank you for that. Okay, council member reports. This time is provided for council members to briefly present items related to the city, and I'll start with Councilor Cross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is getting late, so I'm just going to fly through this. It's already February. Attended a YMCA Board of Directors meeting. We're working really hard on the YMCA signature event in March. Attended Knock It Down, Lift Up Kids for Valor Mentoring. That was a fun night of bowling. I think they raised about $40,000, and I'm excited to go to the ribbon cutting next week at the Keizer Grange. Attended Food for Thought, a Catholic Community Services rededication for the Bishop Chamber.
A very active community member. All right, Councilor Duran.
I'm going to be more brief and have nothing.
Council President Starr.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't remind our community, if you've made it through our 3-hour meeting, that our next meeting on Tuesday, February 20th, due to a holiday, we will be swearing in the emotional support dog for Keizer Police Department, Coda. So we're inviting everybody to come to the swearing in. And I have it on good authority that she is learning how to raise her paw to take her oath of service. So that will be at the top of the hour of the city council meeting. On September, wow, I either went way back or jumped way forward. January 23rd, I had the opportunity to give an update on this city of Keizer and what we're working on here as a council to the Salem Chambers Executive Council luncheon meeting that they have every quarter. On January 27th, I had the, it was really an honor and a privilege to attend the all city Salem Keizer School District all city middle school band concert and just witness the talent that many of our Keizer middle schoolers have in terms of whether they're an orchestra or band. It was just amazing, and the choirs as well. On the 29th, we had, as you heard, a very robust Personnel Policy Committee meeting. And then on February 1st, had the opportunity to attend an invitation event with the Salem Keizer Public School Superintendent, just to have conversation with community leaders and kind of look at what's coming up for the school district in the next 6 months, which has a direct impact on our students here. And had an amazing evening on the 3rd, on Saturday night, watching McNary High School's Mamma Mia production. It was absolutely just amazing at the talent of our students. So well done, McNary.
Oh, it was. That was absolutely epic. Absolutely epic. All right, Councilor Kohler.
Thank you. I'll be fairly brief too. Of course, Mr. Lawyer talked about the Parks Board, which was pretty exciting. And then attended the Salem Southeast Keizer Neighborhood Association. We had a report from the fire department. They had the most ever calls in January, 714. They're looking to hire 6 new paramedics. We talked extensively about the helmet rewards program, if somebody has some ideas about that, some ideas what rewards can be given, and some people in contact to do that, please contact me or members of the Southeast Keizer Neighborhood Association Board. Keizer Community Dinner was last week. We served 214 meals and a lot of fun there. On the 21st of February, it was going to be the Government Affairs Committee for the Chamber of Commerce held at the View at McNary Golf Course. Keizer United Board meeting was held today. This next meeting we have will be next Monday at 11:45 at City Hall here. We have District Attorney Paige Clarkson coming, will be our speaker, which is pretty exciting. Be a lot of fun. So that'll be brief. That's it. I'll report on today.
All right, thank you very much. Councilor Hussman.
Traffic Safety Bike Ped meeting coming up Thursday, February 15th, 6 p.m. right here in the council chambers. Otherwise, stay warm and stay dry, everybody.
Thank you very much. Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few things. First of all, Keizer Homegrown Theater is opening Boing Boing starting this weekend. It will run for 3 weekends, and so that is, and there is a special Valentine's Day production on that as well. So that is something to look forward to. The Special Olympics of Oregon had their puller plunge last Saturday, and the McNary Unified Program had a big part in this, and it was great fun, and we had a lot of McNary participation in that. And they are still looking for donations. Always, the Special Olympics have that opportunity to donate. So if you are interested in that, plungeoregon.org. If you go to plungeoregon.org, there is a donate button on there that you can have that opportunity. And it was just a fantastic experience. I had the opportunity to go to the Sequoia Crossings opening, which is a permanent supportive housing facility across from Fred Meyer, so just on the other side of our border with Salem. And I was just so impressed with that facility. The designers have not only solved the problem of putting a roof over people's head, but they've considered the whole person. They look at this, it's a very people-oriented sort of solution from the trauma-informed architectural design to the dog park facility and the kid facilities. And just really looking at the whole person involved in the problem and not just the problem. And so really impressed with that. That's 60 units. We have huge needs still in our area, but that is making excellent progress towards taking care of all of our people who are experiencing housing insecurity. So really appreciated that opportunity. Big thank you to Community Action Agency and Salem Housing Authority and I'm sure, and HUD, the Housing and Urban Development also was involved with that. So lots of people involved and huge project and excellent results. Also attended a student art show at the Art Association across the way in the Civic Center, and some really excellent student art there, and it was just great to see the kids so proud of their art, and just really, it will be there for the next month, and so I encourage you to get over there and see it. And the last thing is, there is a huge blood shortage according to the American Red Cross. And so we have in Keizer many opportunities to give blood, and I would encourage everybody who is able to make that small sacrifice of time and blood and help our neighbors that way. That's all.
All right, thank you very much. Youth Councilor Woodard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Mamma Mia just ended. I went on the opening night. That was really good. We had Mary Poppins last year for our musical, and before that we had Elf, which Mamma Mia was my favorite one, so that's good. And then speaking about our youth liaison slots, I've reached out with kind of more with our who leads NHS at our McNary High School, and so I know some people that are already applying for it, and he told me that he's gonna make sure that slots get filled for that. And so hopefully coming years we can have that, get started and have consistency and people being able to serve full terms on the liaison positions. Yes. And furthermore, for sports, our winter sports are kind of wrapping up. The girls wrestling team did really good this year. I mean, probably like the most prominent team in terms of sports wise. Haven't had a great track record other than our soccer, which is really good. And furthermore, on that, we have our spring sports starting. And with fine arts, we also have our band concerts coming up on the 28th of December, or February, sorry. I also went back in time. And our orchestra concert's also on the 29th, so fun little leap year there. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I also want a big shout out at McNary that Mr. Brad Lomax won the Excellence in Education Award at the Keizer First Citizen. So congratulations to Mr. Lomax, truly representing the world-class McNary Celts. Councilor Reed?
I just also want to throw in Bailey Lawyer, won the Future First Citizen Award, much deserved. So just wanted to throw that in there too.
And for anybody who wasn't looking at yes, Mr. Johnson?
I'm sorry, I got passed over here at the end of the line. It's the emeritus, I think. I just wanted to add to Mr. Lindsay, Joe's been here about 2 weeks, and so we've been working together, and it's good to have another attorney around. And the advantage of having two attorneys is you have at least 3 opinions. So I wanted to thank Joe for the help. He has jumped in with both feet, and it's a ton of stuff. And I won't belabor you, but he's just have a string of bad lucks. We have cases like that we only have once every 4 years, and like 3 of them happen like the day he comes. So thanks, Joe, for all the hard work.
Thank you, and thank you for both of you teaming up to help with a very smooth transition. And again, Mr. Johnson, there's no replacing you. We're excited to have Mr. Lindsay as your successor to keep the good work going. So thank you so much. The first citizen this year, Kevin Dial, just an amazing person, family person, and volunteer in our community. The Merchants of the Year, Lewis and Leslie Ricewick. And covered education, what'd I miss? I think that was the 4. So it was a great night and really appreciated everybody showing up. Was that? President's Award. Thank you, Mike Lowry. I was like, Lowry, thank you. Just a couple of things to add to what folks have been mentioning this evening. A big one is I want to bring to council's attention, last year, the city council unanimously supported a bill introduced and worked on by Representative Mannix to study the possibility for the extension of the West Rail Line, commuter rail, down through, including Keizer, down to Salem. And there is a bill that is continuing on in this session, Senate Bill 1572, introduced by Representative Mannix. There's going to be a hearing next week on the 13th at 5 p.m. And I just want to let you know that based on our past approval of being a participant in this study, that I will be testifying in favor of this bill at Representative Mannix's request. This is to keep us at the table for the conversation around what would this look like, how would it impact Keizer, and more importantly, to be at the table for all of these discussions for an additional possible service. This doesn't, it does not commit us to anything except being a participant in the conversation. So I will be doing that. The other thing I want to point out is I've been able to visit some of our schools recently. I've been at Claggett Creek Middle School and presenting to all of their AVID program classrooms. So I was I addressed 3 classes last week, and this week I will address 3 more. Fantastic students, great questions and conversations, so they understand the importance of local government. Also, I was able to attend the ribbon cutting for CTEC, which is the Career Technical Education Center Aviation ribbon cutting at Salem Airport. This is a fantastic partnership that's opening up the CTEC Aviation from being drone only to including the drones, flight simulators and instruction by our own James Hutches, and flight mechanics, with a segue and partnership to additional licensure and training for the students when they leave the high school program, going into professions that are in desperate need of skills in all of those areas. Congratulations, Salem-Keizer School District, to our community, our business community, for investing in this program as CTEC Aviation. One last thing I'd like to mention to you all coming up is, I'll be at the Rec Grange opening over here on Chemawa on the 13th. That'll be 8:30 in the morning. And that's pretty much it. The rest of it is like you. I'm going to events in the community and participating in conversations so that Keizer is always bringing our leadership into the forefront in our community. You know, I do want to thank the Council President Starr for representing Keizer at the Salem Chamber Executive Leadership Council, and I will be at the February, 15th with the Mid-Willamette Valley Realtors, and the Council President Starr will be leading the conversation at the Salem-Keizer Marion County Community Meeting that same morning at the same time. So what we do, we divide and conquer. That is all I have for that. I would like to draw your attention to agenda input. Something I mentioned earlier was about the work sessions that are being scheduled. Did we miss something? Okay. Agenda input will be next Monday, February 12th at 6 p.m., the Long Range Planning Task Force. Tuesday, February 20th, 2024, 7 p.m., City Council in regular session. The following Monday, February 26th, 6 p.m., part 2 of the Long Range Planning Task Force, March 4th, 7 p.m., Keizer City Council regular session, and then our work session, first work session in March on the 11th at 6 p.m. will be a joint City Council Community Diversity Engagement Committee work session. Also coming up, just so you know, you have been asking for work sessions regarding our finance policies, so that is being scheduled. And Mr. Lindsay will be preparing that. We'll get that on the schedule. Also, we need to circle back on the neighborhood association ordinance and meet with our neighborhood associations again this spring. We're looking probably April 8th for that. So we can close the loop on it. And that was very successful last year, having all the neighborhood associations here, having that conversation and making sure that we have clear expectations, processes, and understand how our neighborhood associations are working and how we can assist them. Also coming up will be, we'll start work sessions regarding the right-of-way and franchise-free framework. So that also will be coming to a work session near you. We got a lot coming up. All right, anything else for the good of the order? Oh, I do want to, for one more thing. Sorry, I know it's late. Today I had the privilege of joining many of our colleagues across Salem, Keizer, and the state of Oregon, remembering Edwin J. Peterson. He was a former Chief Justice of the Oregon Supreme Court. His wife is former mayor of Salem, Anna Peterson. His incredible legacy of judiciary service, mentorship, leadership, insightfulness was left an indelible positive mark on the people in the state of Oregon. And I just want to give a shout out and a thank you to all who came and who are now benefiting from the work of a lifetime of achievement by Edwin J. Peterson. All right. The time is, if we have nothing else, the time is 10:18 and we are adjourned.